I could have talked literally the past month. I could have made like 16 videos about Street Fighter 6 and all the hypothetical situations and all the speculation that could be leading up to where we're at right now. I kind of wanted to focus a little bit on the next discussion of Street Fighter 6. And the next part is specifically not going after the roster that I think people are expecting. I don't want to just create a roster, right? I think like anybody can just throw their favorite characters into a roster and have it be that. I want to get really specific with this, which is why this is going to be a two-parter. The first part, I want to focus on Street Fighter 6, and I did this before with Street Fighter 5 way back in the day, like when that game was first like announced and we didn't even have a like release date yet. I want to first focus on the characters that I want to see in Street Fighter 6, the returning characters that might or might have not been in Street Fighter 5, maybe were in Street Fighter 4, maybe back in the day from Street Fighter 3 or the alphas, and have just never made an appearance in like any way, or potentially should come back. Which characters do I want to see come back or return? Who should come back for Street Fighter 6? What characters would I like to see in that new taste, right? The new taste that Street Fighter 6 is going to be, because it is very different than every other Street Fighter game at this point. I think we need to start this thing off by pulling up the completed roster for Street Fighter 5. And I'm just going to go through the roster, and I'm going to look at some of these characters and tell you, outside of like, I think there's like obvious like World Warriors. We know these characters should come back. Like most of the World Warriors, if not the World Warriors to the Super Street Fighter characters, should mostly return or exist in some way. So let's focus on the ones that I want to see come back in Street Fighter 6, and the ones that I think would look great in a modern day unique Street Fighter 6 art style. We got a lot to work with here, because at the end of the day, Street Fighter 5 got a metric ass load of characters added to the game. So let's see. I feel, let's just start going through it, and I'll give you any of my harsh emotional reactions to any of this stuff and in Street Fighter 5's roster, and whether or not they should come back, and who I would really like to see come back. I would like to see Nash come back in some way. I actually would. I think what they did to Nash was pretty sick. And all things considered, his gameplay was completely different than previous games. I'm actually really happy with Nash coming back in some way and potentially evolving beyond what Nash is, maybe becoming Charlie again. He's dead, I get it, he's a zombie, but I really enjoyed what they did to his gameplay, and I'd kind of dig a different approach, the not Guile gameplay. I kind of like that. Who do I really want to come back in some way? This guy! Yes, I want Rashid. I think Rashid should come back. I want to see what a different non-Street Fighter 5 art style Rashid would be. No. I think Rashid was easily one of the best new characters that was in Street Fighter 5. I genuinely would like to see a different take on the character, especially considering that there was a whole bunch of rumors way back in the day. Rashid was supposed to be in a Versus game. He is now. Through the power of fandom, the dude is actually in a Versus game, but officially represented in like Marvel Infinite. He was maybe supposed to be a part of like the first or second season DLC if the game just didn't get thrown into the trash can, and that would have been really cool. This guy feels like his gameplay already fits in a Versus game. Rashid would have been dope. Rashid would be dope. I'm kind of curious to see where they are going forward with him. Who else to come back? Who else do I really want to see come back? This is a weird one. Jury is like, obviously I think she should come back. I think Jury's a staple, right? Just a staple. I don't even know if I have anything to say about it. This isn't a character that I absolutely adore her gameplay, but this character is way too popular. She's way too huge to be a thing that should not return. I think Jury has to come back in some way and be redesigned and have a new take on her gameplay. I'm trying to avoid looking at these characters that I don't want to come back and the ones that I do want. But the next one that my brain immediately goes to is technically Menat. And yes, Menat is easily one of the best looking characters in Street Fighter 5 visually, and she should come back. I don't know if they should reapproach her gameplay, because she is easily one of the sort of like weirdest characters to be really good at, and that's good. It's good that there are weirdos gameplay-wise that exist within the game. That's fantastic. Maybe that's good. Maybe she should be the character to fill that archetype going forward. Yeah, Menat is like arguably one of the greatest animating characters in a game like I've seen. She's ridiculous. A lot of people are saying Zeku, and I really don't feel any direction on Zeku. Once again, this is a character that feels like this should be something that I absolutely love. The guy's literally a Strider reference in Street Fighter, but I feel like he fits good in this game and we're good, you know? This isn't a situation where he has to show up in everything from this point forward. I don't think Zeku lit a candle under everyone's ass as far as his extremely captivating gameplay and visual design. I don't think so. I think it was good that he was here. He essentially took the spot of the Bushin Ryu Guy character and did a bunch of crazy stuff with it, which I think was cool. I'm pretty down with that. Do I think he has to come back? You know, I don't really feel any specific way about it. It's not screaming to me that he has to come back. However, who else on here has to return? Who do I really want to see come back? Okay, none of this row is making me feel like a specific way. Like, this character could or could not come back, and I'll be like, ah, okay. Sakura could or cannot come back, and I feel like, sure, like, okay. I mean, obviously Sakura should come back, right? I guess I feel something about that. Falk, we'll leave it that for the next part. But here's one that I feel extremely about. Regardless if I haven't really played anything of this character for like 3 years since he came out, but this guy, what is it, 2018 take on what Q could be as a character, G, in my opinion, is a lightning in the bottle Street Fighter character. If you had like the female character that sort of took everyone by storm in Street Fighter 4 was Jury. If there's a character that I feel took everyone by storm that was a brand new character in Street Fighter 5, it's the president of the world, it's G. I think G needs to come back in some way. I think he should also be evolved or changed in some way, like something happens to him. Maybe we learn more about his weird ass mysterious story, like all that kind of stuff. I genuinely like him. I think they can improve on things. I think they could also maybe even tone down the wackiness or bump up the wackiness of him. But what a weird, insane idea for a character that G is. So, do I want to see G come back? Yes, that is what I feel heavily about. If we can take one thing from Street Fighter 5 that was absolutely brand new, I think G is one of the characters we could do. Kage is just not evil Ryu, so I don't really have much to say about that. Who needs to come back? Okay, I feel strongly about this one. I don't know if I feel strongly about any of these characters specifically, right? Do I think Gil should come back? I don't know. Do I think Lucia should come back? I feel like a lot of these characters, at least right here, I think many of them almost feel like Street Fighter 4 follow-ups in some way. Gil isn't, obviously, because he's Street Fighter 3. Gil's always been tied to the story of Street Fighter, especially the story mode of SF5. I think Gil being like a de facto boss that shows up in every single game from this point forward. I don't know. I don't know if Gil has the staying power. I think the only boss in Street Fighter, in my opinion, that really has shown that he should stay, and this is a character that will be in every single one, is Bison. Obviously, because Bison's like one of the greatest villains in fighting game history. But Seth, Street Fighter 4 Seth, Street Fighter 5 Seth, Street Fighter 3 Gil, Street Fighter 4 Gil. I really enjoy the gameplay of Seth in this game by a lot, but I don't know if they have like the oomph to be confirmed a spot in the next game. At least that's my personal take on the whole situation. Bison's dead though. Exactly. Yes. We all know the tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. If your fighting game character's dead, there's no way they're coming back. Right? Everyone knows that song, right? There's no way. If a fighting game character is dead, there is zero way they'll show up in the next game. Time and time again for like 30 years that there's no way they'll come back. No way. They're dead. They're dead. They're not coming back. They're dead. Anyway, do I think like Lucia would come back? I think she was a cool addition. She mostly comes off as like female Ken. I think she fits pretty good in Street Fighter 5. Right? I think she's actually pretty good in this game. However, of all these characters that remain in here, the Dan, the Rose, the Oro, the Akira, and the Lukes, if I had to choose one character that I think has to come back for Street Fighter 6 and should be a character that is like a staple in Street Fighter games in general, it's this guy. That's just me. And I think what they did with Dan in Street Fighter 5 is friggin' brilliant. The way they've approached his gameplay balance is also friggin' brilliant. I feel like Dan gave me so much more confidence in modern day Capcom as far as like making fighting games. I have even more respect for what they're doing. I feel like they have a really good handle on how to make some characters really captivating and interesting, even though they're supposed to be low tier and stupid, you know? I think Dan is a very fun character in this game, and I think the way they approached him was super smart. So that's the ones I feel heavily about Street Fighter 5's roster. The characters that I would really like to see come back, at least from SF5 that I think should 100% like confirm get a spot. It's not the entire roster because I feel very heavily about some other characters in this roster that I might not want to see come back in the future. But let's check out Street Fighter 4. Which characters should specifically return, right? If there was a character in Street Fighter 4 that was an interesting iteration of them, or we liked them, or they should come back in some way, right? That isn't like redundant. Obviously, Poison is already here. Rolento, DeCapre. Do I feel any of the Ultra Street Fighter 4 characters should be absolutely confirmed a spot in Street Fighter 6? I don't know if I feel that way about any of this roster right here. Let's start looking down. Abel, Adon, Akuma, Balrog. Obviously, Akuma should come back. Obviously, Balrog. Like, World Warriors, I think World Warriors all deserve a spot in some way, like the World Warrior 8. Super Street Fighter 4 characters is a different conversation. But here's one that I would actually like to see a modern day take on. I would like to see what a redesign of Sea Viper is like, right? She was already a Marvel character, which was really cool. She's already been featured on a lot of stuff. She was practically like one of the quote-unquote main characters of Street Fighter 4. I think Sea Viper would be pretty dope in SF6, in that style, in that fashion. So I'd be down. I'd like to see that. Here's another character that I think, with modern day sensibility, I'd say, I'd be happy to see where they could take him and hopefully make him super sick, because the references and kind of the history of the character is all over the place. DJ's a character that I kind of would hope you could make really cool and something different than what is the super tropey like 90s version of him, and that never changed, right? If anything, I would like DJ to possibly like move away from the initial like Billy Blanks, you know, reference dude that he was, and give him a refresher of gameplay, give him something relatively different, new visual design, a modern take on DJ. I think would be kind of interesting. Here's what I feel passionately about, chat. Here's one that I feel like thick and passionately about. We're going on to the next row down here. I wish this character showed up in Street Fighter 5. I really kind of was looking forward to the potential redesign of this character in SF5, because if there's one character that I was not super happy with a Street Fighter 4 interpretation of, it was Dudley. And I've been vocal about this for a long time. I don't think Dudley's a bad character by any means, but a lot of the things that made him the super sick, like beat the shit out of you, brick shithouse, keep it classy, gutter trash, like you're a gutter trash kind of dude that he was in, but he's civilized. Like, I feel like the interpretation of him in Street Fighter 4 was a little not what I was looking for, right? It was just a very different take. I didn't like his voice. I wasn't a fan of the way he felt. He fell flat on me. I was generally underwhelmed. If we can take Dudley and throw him into a relatively more like hyper visual style that Street Fighter 6 has, and stick Dudley as a character into that, yes, I want a mountain of muscle dude that is classy as hell, that sips tea with his gloves on. Give me all of that shit. I really want to see that in Street Fighter 6, and I think the chance of it happening is pretty good because he was not in Street Fighter 5. I also think the chance of Dudley being a super fun character that is even expanded beyond what he was in Street Fighter 4, beyond what he was in Street Fighter 3, is also a possibility. And that, to me, is something that I'm very excited about. You know what? I'm gonna say, of this, the remaining of this row and the remaining of this row, which character would I like to see return the most? It's actually Gouken. Gouken's like a weird Shoto not Shoto. He's a crazy weird take on what a Shoto can be. And Gouken's not a character that I played really in SF4. I didn't love his gameplay, but I think the idea that you have like the masters of the Shotokan style is kind of interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see Gouken. I don't even know if I have much else to say. I'd like to see a modern interpretation of Gouken. Guy, Hakan, Ibuki, Juri. We already talked about Juri. She's a staple. I don't know if I feel any specific way about Guy or Hakan, about like the final fighters. I feel like there was so much final fighting, even though Guy was missing from Street Fighter 5, there was so much final fighting in Street Fighter 5. If we're to take these two rows right here, because I'm not even going to say Bison and Ken. Ken obviously should come back. Like, people, if there's a Ryu, there has to be a Ken. I think that, yes, Makoto is another one of those characters. I think Makoto is one of the best characters that came out of the Street Fighter 3 series. And if you want to tell me which character specifically do I think should come back, imagine Makoto in Street Fighter 6 And they have all the fury punches she does, where she essentially is like leaving her gi and her costume behind. That's like a big gimmick of her in her animation style, is that when she would thrust punch or do anything crazy with her karate style, her gi and costume would be back there and she'd be like flying forward and shit, doing all this crazy punch stuff that had a lot of power to it. I think especially with like the engine and the approach that they're taking, if she has these really fast, quick ass punches, that shit could look super cool. Especially if she's like punching the crap out of you and it's like wind is flying by. Man, that could be dope, especially with the Godanzuki super, where she like, bam, punches your ass up. She said Godanzuki! Like, it's like a jet's taking off, but she punched the... Man, I want to see that. That is shit that I want to see. She's already one of the more interesting characters, like in Street Fighter 3, SF Third Strike specifically, because that's where she was introduced. This is an interesting character archetype. The character that has a crappy defensive backdash, but she's all offense, right? Like her forward dash is unreactable. She's just absolutely nuts. I genuinely want to see that come back in some way. Here's another character that I want to see come back, and not many are going to agree with me, right? I don't feel that many will agree with me, because you either love all the crazy Shoto-ness that was Street Fighter 4, or you like the somewhat lack of Shoto-ness, which isn't really, they eventually had a whole bunch in Street Fighter 5. But I think the ongoing evolution of Akuma, like if Akuma went like levels beyond kind of stuff, I really like Oni. I love me some creepy hybrid Shotos that have a different take on just the uppercut Tatsu fireball, right? Like sort of gameplay gimmick. I would really love to see what happens even after Oni, right? Does that become a boss fight at some point? Is that something that could even, how do you even have a character like Oni or even Akuma like in the Street Fighter 6 art style? Like I'm kind of curious like how that shit's gonna look. So that's what has me excited. I would love to see what the hell they would do with a character like Oni. And do I genuinely really enjoy Oni's gameplay? I do. I think this character is some of the most fun you could have in all of this, crazy anime weeb shit. I love it. That's the shit that I actually find really fun about Street Fighter 4. Oh, man. I have a hot take here. I would love to see T-Hawk redone in the exact same way that DJ was. It's a tough road, right? Because there's already been recent Native American characters that have been reimagined in some ways, like Killer Instinct, and even like Nightwolf in Mortal Kombat. And I'd be kind of curious what they would do with T-Hawk, right? How they would have a more modern take on that character. I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know if I feel super strongly about it, but there is a couple of characters that are definitely not mainstays to Street Fighter. Like absolute, they're confirmed and they're mainstays. Because this is like, Sakura's practically a mainstay. Seth, I really could or could not. Vega, Zangief, these characters are going to come back, right? These are just like the mainstays of Street Fighter. However, Yang and Yoon are absolutely teetering on like the edge of a bridge of whether or not they could be in the game or not, or even could be DLC, the twins. And here's my crazy ass hot take. Get rid of them. My hot take is get rid of Yang and Yoon. Replace them with Yang and Yoon. Make them one character, please. Just make them one character. Make them like Ninja Turtle style, slap the brother in tag team type shit. Make them like proper yin and yang. They work together to beat ass. When they first were introduced into the game, they were essentially the same character. I'm not saying that. I'm saying do something sort of similar that Capcom already did with Zeku. Do something that like Injustice 2 did with the Ninja Turtles. You can have multiple different character playstyles on top of one character. Is it a lot more work? Sure, it absolutely is. But I'm saying you can have Yang and Yoon's playstyle on the same character. I am just thinking of like the visual aspect of that, because you already have like, you know, the transformation stuff that happens with Zeku, which is easily one of the coolest things that is in SF5 in terms of just like a move. That was his game plan, is that you change styles. You essentially do this. Yeah, Gen already does a style change in Street Fighter's history. He has like two different stances that change the way he plays completely. But how do you do that visually? How do you quickly allow that to happen between Yang and Yoon? Is that something that's even possible? It's stuff that really like bends my mind of like, how would they pull that off? Is it during special moves? Is it during supers? Is there a way to do this? Is there like a transform that makes it even worth it? Yeah, and do I think their game plan, their gameplay should be dramatically changed because of it? Yeah. I genuinely love the characters that that have a couple of different playstyles that are able to pull off different playstyles in a really cool-ass looking way. You can almost think of him as like a stance character. And I feel like that'd be badass if Yang and Yoon are just eliminated and they become one character and they're essentially like a stance character in some way where they help each other out. And how fucking sick that would be. Swap in on back throw? You know what? That's a good idea, right? They did that in, I mean, hell, God forbid I mentioned Killer Instinct again, but they literally pulled this off with Idol in KI. Where they have Idol is two different characters put into one character, and he switches between the forms because each head is trying to compete with the other to be in control. So they switch depending on the situation and depending on like sort of a random element, and you're essentially playing two different characters at one time. I kind of love that. I think that shit is crazy and dynamic and sort of cool and leads to a lot of goofy situations, and I think what they did with Zeku was already super neat, and I would love to see what the hell they do with a Yang and Yoon hybrid single character. I'm kind of down to see things be different than what they were before. That's my hot takes from Street Fighter 4. I guess we can go back to SF3. If we want, it's like another character that I think should come back, and I'd be genuinely curious how they would approach this character. I can immediately say it. I don't even need to look at the Street Fighter Alpha list. No, I would like to see what Sodom would be like. I was kind of curious what he was going to be like. He was essentially like stuck to the background of a stage in SF4. I'm kind of curious how hard would they go and weeb out Sodom, right? Like I would even be down if he like spoke in like broken Japanese or something. If he's just like an American guy that is so obsessed with Japan, I would just kind of love it if they did that. And he's like a complete joke character. He's like a goofy, fun joke character in some way. And not many people are going to know who this character is. I want this dude for Street Fighter 6. I want to see Eagle. I want to see what the hell they would do with Eagle in SF6. This is a cool character, literally from Street Fighter 1. Is actually a reference to an old, I think, Bruce Lee movie? Where he fights a guy that essentially has like the exact same costume in some way. He's practically just a direct reference. I'm kind of down. Is that his fight style? Eskrima? Where you have like two sticks and you bonk the shit out of dudes? Is Eagle like Rolento? Hell no. No, very different. They have dramatically different play styles. He's just a cool looking character. I feel like Eagle and Dudley are the same character from different universes, right? Like they have very similar like ways that they conduct themselves. And I think it's just sort of cool. It's a cool-ass character archetype in many ways. Who are the outliers in this situation? I won't say Q, because Q and G are already simpatico. They're already sharing so much. So, oh, easy. Who from this entire roster is an easy clap? This is absolutely the character that should come back. If there's one character that I feel extremely about that should come back that was essentially stuck in Street Fighter 3, it's Sean. I feel like everybody wanted Sean to come back in SF5, but his ass didn't. I think it'd be absolutely sick, and I think we mentioned this before, if Sean was opposite to Luke. If there was sort of the gimmick from the first trailer that Ryu's sort of training the next generation of Street Fighters, and Luke is the one that Ryu's training, how cool would that be? And if Ken is obviously training Sean, because that's part of the story already, and then like Sean and Luke are rivals, holy shit, yes! Yes, give me that shit! I'd love that. And I'd love to see, once again, a modern 2022 take on Sean. Go ham with that stuff, man. Go fucking ham. I want to see him throw shit against a backboard. I want the wall for Sean to be no shit like a backboard, and you could like throw a goddamn basketball against the corner and it hits them in the back of the head and allows you to extend combos and shit. I'm clapping already. Let me see that shit. Let me have it, man. He incorporates like one of his like favorite pastimes into his fighting style. Fucking let me do, and it's all about like making shit look fancy and fucking cool and showing off and stuff, but he still has like that element of not being the best. Yes, please. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities there. I think that personally concludes the end of this list, and I kind of got into why I feel like a few of these characters should come back in some way. But then you mention Elena. Some people mention like Necro from SF3. Should they come back? And to me personally, I feel like some of those belong on a different list, and that's the one we're going to talk about next.